Hey guys, welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Apologies for not making a guide for a while. I've been getting a ton of growth from my League of Legends videos, so I decided to capitalize on that a bit. Worry not, I still really enjoy playing Genshin, so I'll continue making videos on it. Just like other RPGs, equipment matters a lot, so much to the point where in most cases, people come to an agreement on what is considered best in slot, as in which equipment gives the best assortment of stats, synergies, and benefits above any other item. But what's cool about this game is that the best weapons and artifacts usually depend on what kind of playstyle you employ for each character, moreover, what role that character plays for their party. Even to a lesser extent, DPS units have a wide variety of weapons to choose from, and while out of that variety there still technically is a best in slot, the others aren't too far behind to the point where the difference comes down to mostly how well a player executes their rotations and combos. So for this video, I'll be talking about the best weapons for each 5-star character, just 5 stars since it would take too long to go about every single character in one video, but if you enjoyed watching this one and would like to see a video for 4 stars, please let me know. With that out of the way, let's get started. So going in alphabetical order, let's start with Sucrose's college professor Albedo. He's typically built as a geo support or sub DPS unit, which means you use him more for his elemental skill and ultimate, not necessarily his basic attacks. But if you were to use him as DPS, consider Primordial Jade Cutter, which is the new sword that came out with Xiao's banner. Jade Cutter is currently the best sword for anyone trying to take advantage of crit rate since the base stats are so good. Passive is more of an afterthought since it's one of the weaker ones I've seen, especially for a 5-star weapon. But for budget players, try the Flute since it's a good all-purpose attack-based weapon. If you're playing support Albedo, which you should, the best weapon would have to be Skyward Blade since you want a ton of energy recharge. You also get a lot of stat bonuses from the passive. But if you don't have that, there's a wide variety of support swords to make use of, such as Festering Desire, which is the event weapon given for free during the Dragonspine event if you were playing during that time. Then there's the Favonius and Sacrificial Swords. Generally speaking, you want to get energy recharge to make the best use of his Elemental Burst, which is the core of his support DPS. On to everyone's favorite anime Batman, Diluc is a very straightforward character, still to this day the strongest DPS unit in the game because of how broken Pyro is thanks to Melt and Vaporize. Without a doubt, the best weapon on him is the elusive Wolf's Gravestone. Massive base attack and percent attack, but gives even more in its passive to the point where this weapon alone, if you're crazy enough to get 5 copies of it, can give you upwards of 150% attack by itself. The alternative to it will be Skyward Pride, not giving nearly as much raw power, but it does have almost 70 more base attack, and it buffs your total damage, which is not that bad either. Should you have neither of them, the best 4-star weapon for him is the Prototype Archaic, formerly known as the Prototype Animus, which is for all intents and purposes just a weaker version of Wolf's Gravestone, but still definitely serviceable and easy to get because you can forge it. And conveniently enough, if you have Diluc, you can get a small discount on the materials, which is never a bad thing. Next is Qiqi's Coco Goat. Ganyu can go for Cryo main DPS, taking advantage of her amazing double charge shot as well as just overall really strong damage from her ultimate. So if you want to go for the former, I suggest Amos Bow. It's arguably the best bow in the game for anyone using charge shots for DPS, because you deal more damage the further you are away from targets, which you should be doing anyway. If you don't have Amos Bow, Prototype Crescent is good because it gives you a massive attack boost on charge shots that aim for either the weak spot on a target or their head, and both of them give percent attack, so you can't go wrong with that. For support damage, you can still go Amos Bow, but if you want, try your hand at either Skyward Harp or the Stringless, since those apply better into elemental skills and bursts, which is how she's going to contribute if you're swapping her in and then right back to your main. So Genshin's Lolly Arson Terrorist is next. Klee is the first and only 5-star mage DPS, and from what I've heard, she will be that way for a long time, so if you're worried about spreading your weapon inventories too thin for her, she can get all of them. Klee's best choice is Skyward Atlas since it permanently boosts her elemental damage, and she always does pyro damage. So essentially, it's a permanent 12 to 24% pyro damage boost. Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds is a close second because it gives crit rate instead of attack, which usually is considered better in the late game to end game, and it has a similar boost in elemental damage. Of course, should you lack either of these, I don't blame you. Solar Pearl is a good 4-star option, but it is a Battle Pass item, so it's not exactly available for free-to-play players. In that case, try Eye of Perception, which is a similar passive to Skyward Atlas in that it does bonus damage every so often. Most of the catalysts are kind of the same, so you have a lot to work with, but generally I would recommend one of these 4. Continuing on with Saber's 87th twin sister, we have Miss Dandelion Tights Jean. She's a really interesting one because while she is an animo unit, she's also a healer, meaning she doesn't have that much elemental damage in her kit. Instead, you would want physical damage, so if you're building her as DPS, her best weapon is the Aquila Favonia, since it gives both physical damage and percent attack, while also having a tiny counter-attack passive that can give you a little extra kickback when you take damage. The 4-star substitute would be Prototype Rancor, which also gives you physical damage and percent attack, except for the latter you have to be in combat to rack up. If you're using Jean just for the healing, grab anything with energy recharge, which would be Skyward Blade or Favonia's Sword, since both of them can make it very easy for you to rack up tons of orbs. In some cases, you can go Festering Desire, but the passive elemental skill boost is sort of a moot point since Jean's skill is a utility skill, not really damage. Finally, we arrive at the best waifu in Genshin Impact, and I will not be persuaded otherwise. Keqing is the primo electro damage dealer, although her physical DPS is not too bad. In fact, Keqing mains are split on what's better for her because she can have electro damage up a lot. Not all the time like Klee can, but either way, best weapon on her regardless of your build would have to be Primordial Jade Cutter, since the massive crit rate synergizes well with her innate crit damage boost. If you're looking for a non-4-star crit item, then try your hand at the Black Sword, which is another battle pass item but well worth it since it also boosts her normal and charged attacks, both of which she uses almost all the time. Should you want to go physical DPS, you can go for Summit Shaper. The shield buff is a missed opportunity unless you pair her up with someone who can shield like Zhongli or Diona, but the percent attack you get on this weapon is definitely no joke. Aquila Favonia is technically an option as well, but I think the bonus attack you get on Summit Shaper can make your elemental skill and ultimate keep up in some degree of pace with your physical rotation. But if you have neither of those, the Flute is one of the best all-purpose DPS swords in the game because it gives attack and periodically deals damage every X amount of hits, and Keqing has very fast DPS. So it appears we're just going through all the thick thighs right now, and what better way to top it off than with the thickest of thighs herself, Mona. As you probably know by now, Mona is legendary for being able to do some ridiculous burst damage with Vaporize, so the way you build her is to maximize the ability to just one-shot anyone that stands in your way. Skyward Atlas and Lost Prayer are both good choices. If you want to min-max your burst damage, I would choose Lost Prayer, but if you want more consistency, I would choose Skyward. I can understand if you don't have either of them, but fortunately for you, there's a lot of really damn good 4-star catalysts such as the Witsith, which is a bit erratic in how it's used, but still overall solid in terms of application. Though if you want to opt for quantity of ultimates instead of quality, try Favonia's Codex. Just a heads up, the Favonia's weapons are all energy recharge based, so you'll see a recurring trend in the near future. Either way, a lot of catalysts to choose from for Mona, so you'll be set with her. Moving on, let's talk about Qiqi. She's a cryo-based healer support who does a decent job with melt and freeze reactions thanks to her elemental skill, although not quite as consistent as Ganyu, but she makes up for it with really good healing. So for any support unit, you know the drill by now. Skyward Blade for the best 5-star weapon because it's the only one with energy recharge. However, in this case, Sacrificial Sword is also really good on her because Qiqi's elemental skill has a very long cooldown. The sacrificial weapons have a % chance to reset your skill's cooldown, which for her is amazing because it takes such a long time. Aside from that, Festering Desire is not half bad because it boosts the damage of your little ice swirly thingy, although Qiqi again is not known for her damage, so it's not really that noticeable. When in doubt, energy recharge and attack, it works perfectly on her. Next up is Big Brother Tartaglia, whom I'll call Child since it has less syllables. Despite being a really fun and effective DPSer, he doesn't really have the best selection of weapons because of his strange mechanic that switches from range to melee form with his elemental skill. So your choices are either Skyward Harp or Rust if you don't have the former. Skyward Harp gives you both crit rate and crit damage, which can apply to your ultimate and melee stance attacks, while Rust gives you a huge boost in normal attacks in exchange for weakening your aimed attacks, although that doesn't apply to him because he doesn't use his aim shot anyway. You mostly want to conduct all of your DPS in melee form. That's also why other bows like Amos Bow are bad on him because he's a bow user who doesn't use a bow, if that makes sense. Overall, I'd say he's the least free-to-play friendly when it comes to itemization, so if you have him, try your best to get at least Rust, since none of the 3-star or craftable bows are that great on him. Okay, we have 3 more to go, hang in there guys. So we have another bow user, the tone-deaf bard himself, Venti. While he's mostly a sub-DPS similar to Mona, he can dish out a ton of punishment if you build damage on him, because his ultimate can single-handedly chainsaw entire groups of enemies if he's strong enough. For weapons, go Skyward Harp, obviously the best bow on any bow user who isn't Ganyu because your elemental burst and skill can both critically strike. But if you don't have either, you have one of two options. Stringless is best if you want more damage per ultimate, and Favonius Warbow is best if you want more ultimates. So it depends on personal preference. For example, in Spiral Abyss, you might want more spammable ultis just to crowd control everyone, especially in defense missions. But for DPS checks, you might want really hard-hitting ultimates since the burst damage is amazing on Venti. Either way, those are your three choices. The other bows don't matter that much on him since Animo as an element generally doesn't do a good job as solo DPS. At least until this guy showed up. Xiao is, as of right now, the only main Animo DPS unit, and a damn good one at that. He's the only spear DPS user as well, so finally we have someone on the list who can use spears. Primordial Jade Wing Spear is by far the best choice for Xiao since it gives him percent attack, crit rate, and bonus damage all in one neat little package. Why the spear has an amazing passive while the sword has a garbage one despite being part of the same series, I will never know. But moving on, Vortex Vanquisher is a decent second option if you decide to pick up a shield support since it gives a lot more attack, but again, crit rate does scale better into the late game. If you don't have any 5-star spears, try your hand at the Blackcliff pole, which can be obtained every so often in Paimon's Bargains, or Deathmatch in the Battle Pass. I understand neither of these are all that easy to obtain for a free-to-play player, but in my experience, the craftable pole arms aren't that great. I mean, they are still usable, but if you're gonna spend the resources necessary to get these weapons to 70, 80, and 90, you probably want to stick with one of these 4, and given the sheer number of free primo gems and stuff like that, you should be able to save up enough star glitter to get at least one Blackcliff pole. Oh, I should also mention, Skyward Spine isn't bad of a choice either, but you are going to be taking a DPS cut because Xiao doesn't get that much benefit out of energy recharge. Last but most certainly not least, our almighty broke Geo Daddy Zhongli. He's a Geo support who can easily apply shields to himself and his party while giving easy applications of Crystallize, and he also offers an ultimate that's amazing for crowd control. For Zhongli, take either Vortex Vanquisher or Skyward Spine. The former if you want your ultimate to hurt like a semi-truck, and the latter if you want a spammable ultimate for hard crowd control and not so much the burst. For the 4 stars, you have Deathmatch and Favonius Lance for the same reasons. Deathmatch if you want one meteor to hit like 10, or Favonius Lance if you want 10 individual meteors. Same basic principles. The buffs to Zhongli have made him way more effective now to the point where he basically removes your need for a healer due to taking almost no damage thanks to his shields. Though if memory serves, there's a new spear coming out with percent HP as the secondary stat, which is Zhongli's best in slot. I believe it's going to come out with Hu Tao in March, so if you're investing in GeoDaddy, I would wait for that one. Of course, that only applies to pay-to-win players because 5-star weapons are even more elusive in my opinion than the actual units themselves. So there you have it, the best weapons as of patch 1.3 for all the 5-star units. Again, if you want me to cover the best weapons for the 4-star units, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. And if you think I was incorrect about a character's best weapon, please let me know that as well. Thanks to everyone who made it all the way to the end. If you'd like to support my channel, best way you can do so is leave a like, comment, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Don't forget to join my Discord server and follow me on other platforms. Links are all down below. Lastly, check out my other Genshin videos if you still have time. But for now, that's it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon for the next video. Take care.